Hello and welcome to this week's Women's Football Chat. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m. bringing you the very latest from the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. That's the FA Women's National League. Now, it's going to be a bit of a different show this week because out of the entire 71 sides in the FA Women's National League, there were only 8 fixtures taking place across the FA Cup, the League Cup plate and all of the divisions. And of course, with it being Christmas this Sunday, there are no fixtures coming up, so it's going to be a bit of a shorter show. But what I'm going to do is dive into a few of the stats, although they can't all be believed. We're going to dive into some of the stats and kind of a midterm report, so to speak, for the teams in the FA Women's National League. But we're going to start with the news. Because the news is that the FA Women's National League charity mascot Quiddy is back for this season. Last appeared in 2018 to help with Grenfell and all of and the charity around that. But it's back this week over Christmas, looking see what the league does over the course of the next week with Quiddy, who, as you can suspect, is a pound coin, who is donning a Santa hat at the moment. Hence Quiddy. But that's back this year as well, so it's great to see what the FA Women's National League does with that. Right, shall we get into the results that did actually happen? Southern Premier Division. Billericay Town against Bridgewater was postponed. So there was just the one game. Cheltenham Town 0, Ipswich Town 2. Maria Boswell and Anna Gray getting the goals for Ipswich Town. What it means for the table is nothing. But Ipswich now move level on points with Watford and Portsmouth in joint second in the Southern Premier Division. They have a game in hand over Portsmouth, but they are level with Watford. They also have a game in hand over Oxford United at the top, so they could reduce it to 2 points when that game in hand is played. So could Watford. So Southern Premier Division at the top, at least, is looking fairly close. Oxford United, as we'll get on to shortly, losing for the first time. Ipswich getting themselves staying in fourth, but getting themselves even closer to Oxford at the top of the table. Cheltenham, who of course they beat, remain in sixth. They don't lose points. So 9 games played, -8 goal difference, and 13 points for Cheltenham Town, who remain firmly in mid-table in their first season in Tier 3. Division 1 North actually escaped the weather and had all 3 planned fixtures go ahead. Division 1 Midlands had nothing, as neither did the Northern Premier Division. Hadn't figured that out. Durham Sestra, they had a lunchtime kick-off, 2-0 victory over Hull City. 41st minute Sarah Byrne and 88th minute Leanna Giles. Newcastle, convincing 9-0 victory over Merseyrail. Goals in this one: Ellie Dobson in the 33rd minute, Casey Elson in the 40th. Then Casey Elson again, 45th minute, Ellie Dobson again in the 50th, Charlotte Potts in the 57th. Then a hat-trick for Katie Barker, 64th, 68th and 85th minute. And Lauren Robson off the substitutes bench in the 84th minute, also getting a goal, which is all 9 for Newcastle United. And Stockport County beating York City by 3-0. Chloe Howard, Emily Bradshaw and Kenzie Bentley with the goals for Stockport County. In the North Table then, teams at the top beating teams towards the bottom. So the bottom half is as it was in terms of league positions and points. The goal difference has slightly changed, but the teams are still where they were. Newcastle, though, have leapfrogged Barnsley with that victory. They had the better goal difference. They had the better goal difference now. They didn't, but 9 this weekend. So they've gone from 7 to 16 in the goal difference and jumped into second place. They're 1 point behind Durham Sestra. Barnsley, though, have a game in hand. They're in third. And Stockport County are up 2 places after that victory over York City. They're now in fourth on 18 points. Same points as Middlesbrough, but a better goal difference, and 2 points ahead of Leeds United. Middlesbrough and Leeds both drop 1 place, but the top 6 then, there's been a bit of movement about. The bottom 6 is exactly the same. Nothing in Division 1 South East, Division 1 South West. AFC St Austell got their first win of the season, a 3-2 victory over Portishead Town. They were 2-0 up at half-time. Isabel Scott with a brace and Kaylee Brown with the goals for AFC St Austell. Ellie Bell in the 70th minute and Amy Clark in the 75th minute got the goals for Portishead Town, but AFC Austell hung on and got their first points of the season. Other results, Exeter City 2, Larkhall Athletic 0, Chloe Gilroy and Jenna Markham with the goals for Exeter City. What it means for the table, nobody has moved here, but as you can see there, if you're watching the video version of this, Exeter City in third. They're on 22 points. They're 5 points behind Cardiff City. They've played the same number of games, but they have 2 games in hand over AFC Bournemouth in second, and they're on the same number of points. Other victory was for AFC St Austell. They remain at the bottom. Their massively inferior goal difference is almost like another point for them. But they've gone from 0 to 3. They've played more games than anybody else apart from Larkhall Athletic. They've still got a game in hand on them. And if they could get another victory, level on points with Larkhall perhaps, and then look to potentially get more points and keep this momentum going now, I think they'll have the belief now that they can keep going forward. And maybe they'll be able to survive in the Division 1 Southwest for this season. So the Division 1 Southwest table, then Cardiff City go into Christmas unbeaten. They're at the top with 27 points. Then Bournemouth 22, Exeter 22. Then Southampton Women's, Moneyfield, Chelsea, Swindon, Portishead Town, who stay where they are despite losing. Keynsham, Larkhall Athletic, who stay where they are despite losing. Then Maidenhead and St Austell at the bottom. Those are the league fixtures. Let's have a look at the Cup, because we had 2 fixtures in the FAWNL Cup. Now these were the games that had to be delayed because of either the first round games being played or FA Cup fixtures, because of course the FA Cup, the Continental Cup that the Super League and the Championship are in, takes precedence over the FA Cup, so those games are in January now, but these ones that involved FAWNL sides could be played. So we've got Hashtag United 3, Watford 5 after extra time. Now, this one was moved and played at Watford's training ground behind closed doors and indeed indoors to get this game played. It was a real back and forth game. So Poppy Wilson opened the scoring for Watford in the 13th minute. Samantha Rowland for Hashtag United made it 1-1. Then Ellie Head made it 2-1 to Watford just 5 minutes later on the 25th minute. It then went to 3-1. Andrea Gorgiou in the 27th minute. Now you see, this is where this is one of these goals, and I'll be honest, I'm not sure which off the top of my head. I'll have to look it up again. But what they've done on full time, and again, this is because the teams, it was 3-3 at the end of 90 minutes. Now, only one goal has been put in. So what we've got here, I'll explain it to you. So Hashtag's goals, 20th, 70th and 80th minute, that's all fine. But Watford, according to full time, scored 4 goals in normal time and only 1 in extra time, which of course doesn't work. So it's a difficult one because it's obviously been put in incorrectly, because the it's been put in incorrectly because on full time it says that it was 4-3, but then it wasn't. It was 3-3, and 2 of the goals were in extra time, not one of them. So let me just have a look there. So it was actually Poppy Wilson's goal that I said was in the 13th minute, wasn't in the 13th minute. That was in the extra time 13th minute, but it's not been put down as an extra time 13th minute. So that makes more sense. So let me start again. So it was a back and forth game. Hashtag United took the lead through Samantha Rowland in the 20th minute. Ellie Head then equalised for Watford in the 25th minute. Watford then went ahead by Andrea Giorgio in the 27th minute. Then they went 3-1 in front. Fran Ali in the 69th minute after coming off the substitutes bench. But just 1 minute later, Hayley West made it 3-2 to Hashtag, scoring 20 minutes from time. Then 10 minutes from time, Samantha Rowland made it 3-3 with as I said, with 10 minutes to go. It then went into extra time. Grace Garrett scored in the 7th minute of extra time and Poppy Wilson scored in the 13th minute of extra time to give Watford a 5-3 victory. Sorry about that, but it just knocked down properly on full time. Only other game to be played then in the Cup was Portsmouth against Oxford. As I said, Oxford losing here. Jasmine Younger with the only goal of the game, 34 minutes in, and Portsmouth won that one by a goal to nil. So they progress in the Cup. Does that potentially, though, help Oxford in the league? Because they'll have lower amount of games. Plymouth against Cardiff was postponed because of bad traffic. Cardiff just couldn't get to Plymouth. Bad traffic on the M5. And Southampton Women's against Swindon Town was also postponed. Right, just one FA Cup game to go through, just to finish off all of the results. Because Wimbledon Gillingham postponed, Leeds Stoke postponed, Burnley Norwich postponed, Liverpool Feds West Brom postponed. The only game that went ahead in the FA Cup was Solihull Moors 2, AFC Fylde 5. Goals for this one, a hat-trick for Faye McCoy for AFC Fylde, Amy Hughes and Jenna Carroll also getting goals for them, Lindsay Ross-Baker and Shannon McFadden getting the 2 goals for Solihull Moors, but it's Fylde who progress in the FA Cup. Right, those are all the results. So now let's have a bit of a look at some of the stats, those that we can believe at least, and I'll explain why you can't believe all of the stats in a moment. But let's just have a look at the tables then. We're going to start in the Northern Premier Division, just pretty much at the halfway point, but this is going to be the best opportunity we have to have a half-term review of these tables. So Wolverhampton Wanderers at the top on 25 points from 10 games. Nottingham Forest on 22 points, but from 9 games. Their goal difference is only 1 lower. And as I explained a couple of weeks ago, if Forest win that game by and score more than 1 goal, then they will go top. As it stands at the moment. Burnley in 3rd, they've played 10, they're on 22. Huddersfield Town are 5 points back, but they have only played 9. You feel as though if they were to win that game, that game in hand, which is against Forest, then they would pull themselves into the mix, being only 5 points away from Wolves, with everybody having played the same. You feel if Forest win that one, or I feel at least if Forest win that one, and Huddersfield are 8 points back, then that might be a bit too much. If you look at the fact that Wolves and Forest have only drawn, Wolves, let's take them as an example, at pretty much the midway point of the season, have only dropped 5 points. And even if they lose their 11th game of the season, at the halfway point of the season, they've only dropped 8. So Huddersfield would need to go perfect throughout the second half of the season to pull themselves back in if they were 8 points back. So that's going to be a very important game when that one happens. Then Derby, Stoke, Liverpool Feds, AFC Fylde, Bournemouth, St Michael's and West Bromwich Albion have all played 10. And they are in sequence actually from 14 points all the way down to 9. Brickhouse Town and Loughborough Lightning, the 2 sides in the bottom 2. And they are the only 2 sides that have played 11. And they're on 8 points and 2 points respectively. So you look at that and you're Loughborough Lightning already 7 points away from safety. Halfway point of the season might be difficult for them to stay in the 3rd tier. Of course, the 2 new teams in the Northern Premier Division, Liverpool Feds and Bournemouth St Michael's, both comfortably in the midfield as it stands at the moment, but it is only because it is so tight. 2 points between Brickhouse Town and Bournemouth St Michael's, but of course Liverpool Feds and Bournemouth St Michael's, as all the teams do ahead of Brickhouse Town, have 2 games in hand. Right, let's have a look at the kind of supposed stats, and we'll look at just the league here in the... hang on, we'll look at just the league in the Northern Premier Division. There we go. So goals so far then in the Northern Premier Division. Millie Grace Ravening, this is just league. 12 goals in 10 games, 3 of those being penalties. Then Amber Hughes with 10 from 10. Amy Sims for Derby with 10 from 10. Laura Elford 8 from 8. And Evie Priestley 7 from 10. I think the thing that is so interesting for me from a stats point of view from the Northern Premier Division is you look at the the teams that are in there, and you go, well, Burnley have got 2 in the top 5. Huddersfield have got 3 in the top 10. Wolves and Forest have only got 1, and Forest's top scorer, Charlotte Greengrass, only has 6 from their 9 games, down in 7th place. What it strikes me as there is that Forest and Wolves as well, to be fair, are getting a lot of goals from a lot of people rather than one person or 2 people getting the vast majority of their goals. They're getting goals from all over the pitch, which gives them that threat that they really do have. Right, Southern Premier Division table. Sorry, that was the results page. Southern Premier Division then. You look at that table and you think, well, Oxford, 5 points clear at the top, but Watford and Ipswich do have games in hand. I think that is going to be a bit of a wider race than potentially the Northern Premier Division now. I think the Northern Premier is going to be between 2 or 3. This could easily be between 4. That top 4 currently at the moment. Of course, Watford came down from the Championship. They've done well to kind of stem the negative flow of dropping down into the National League, which some teams have done. The 2 new teams, Billericay Town, very strong there in 5th. Cheltenham Town also very strong there in 6th. They are 7 and 10 points respectively clear of the relegation zone. So I feel pretty strongly in saying that we're going to see those 2 sides still in Tier 3 next season. Of course, Billericay Town getting promoted on the last day last year. They're going well in the 3rd tier. Both teams there that got promoted firmly in the midfield. Towards the bottom, Plymouth Argyle and Crawley Wasps. Now, Plymouth is 4 points away from safety, but London Bees and MK Dons do have games in hand. Crawley Wasps are already 7 points away from safety. And with the inferior goal difference, that adds another point really to that. So it's going to be a difficult second half of the season for those 2 sides. We'll see if they can mount a bit of a charge to get towards the safety areas of the Southern Premier Division. Let's have a look at Division 1 Midlands. Let's not have a look at Division 1 Midlands. Let's have a look at the Southern Premier Division stats. Again, league only. Leah Burridge of Oxford United topping their way on 7 goals from 10 games. Emma Jones also on 7 goals. She's from 9 games for Portsmouth. Then Carly Johns, 6 goals from 10 games for Oxford. Madison Shamley Farrand for Gillingham with 5 goals, and Molly Cooper for MK Dons also with 5 goals. Again, Oxford and Portsmouth, no surprise that they're up towards the top. 13 goals from Leah Burridge and Carly Johns already this season. Right, Division 1 Midlands table then. Let's have a look at that. Stourbridge way out in front. They are 9 points clear of Doncaster Rovers Bells in second. But Doncaster Rovers Bells have 2 games in hand, so that could reduce the gap back down to 3. Lincoln City are 11 points behind, and they've played 1 more than Stourbridge. Sporting Cowser are 11 points behind, but they've played 1 less than Stourbridge. So they could get to 19 points. That's still an 8-point gap then. So it looks as though it's going to be between Stourbridge and Doncaster Rovers Bells, and that is reliant on Doncaster Rovers winning those 2 games in hand. Stourbridge could just continue to run away with this league. Down towards the bottom, Long Eaton United having a really difficult season. They're 6 points away from safety, having played 10 games. Northampton Town, they are in 11th spot. They're also in the relegation zone. 4 points, from safety, but they have 3 games in hand. It very much is a contrast there between the 2 sides that came up from Tier 5. One flying high, one struggling, but holding on. I don't think they've been cast adrift yet because of these games in hand that they've got. If they can keep the points ticking over, they're going just under a point per game. If you take that up to 10, say they draw, which would kind of be on average for them so far this season. If they were to draw those 3 games in hand, that puts them on 8 points, and then there's only 1 point in it and a couple of wins against the teams they're fighting. They could find themselves getting into 10th, 9th, 8th spot and maybe surviving for the season. Long Eaton United, they need to pick up some wins and pick them up quickly. No surprise who tops the goal scoring. It's Niamh Deasy of Stourbridge. And again, their next scorer, Lindsay Glover, is down on 5. Stourbridge, again, they've got a lot of players that have been scoring kind of a handful of goals and helping them on their way. Just so being able to rotate these players out. Jessica Andrew of Doncaster Rovers Bells has 11, 5 of those from the penalty spot. Kimberly Bebbington of Wem Town also with 11 goals from 10 games. Jessica Razu and Tony McHamilton, both of Lincoln City, 11 and 8 goals respectively, rounding out the top 5. Then we've got the Division 1 North table, which, as I said, we've had that movement in it. So again, if we look at the sides that have come up from Tier 5, they're both towards the bottom in Division 1 North. York City there in 9th. They are 4 points clear of the relegation zone. Merseyrail are in the relegation zone, but they have a game in hand. And they are only 1 point away from safety. But Chorley have 2 games in hand on Merseyrail. So it's a bit messy in Division 1 North because there is a 3-game disparity between York City, who have played more than anybody else and are past the halfway point in their season, from Chorley, who are still a couple of games away from the halfway point. If you look at the points, it's 16 points for Leeds United in 6th, 11 points for York City in 9th. So I suspect there's going to be plenty of movement both in the top and the bottom halves, particularly when you look further up the table. Barnsley in 3rd are only 3 points ahead of Leeds United in 6th. I suspect there's going to be a lot of movement between those teams. Barnsley, of course, with a game in hand, they could get to 22 points and really put pressure on Durham Leicester and Newcastle United at the top. I think Division 1 North is going to be a very exciting second half of the season, arguably the most exciting second half of the season in terms of, well, from a neutral perspective anyway, in the second half of the season. Division 1 South East table, then we've have a look at that as well. No, sorry, I keep doing this. Apologies. Right, we're going to go look at the Division 1 North goals. Now, this is where I say we need to take everything with a little bit of a pinch of salt. Something has been put in incorrectly on full time because, top of Division 1 North for goals is Stockport County's Levi Rathburn, who, according to full time, has scored 32 goals in 11 games. And that's in league only. Now, I had a look at this, and Stockport County have only scored 34 goals in all competitions. They haven't even scored 32 goals in the league. So something's gone wrong with full time now. I think somebody's pressed a button incorrectly. Maybe when they put 1 in, they accidentally put 10 in or something like that. But Bianca Owens, Norton Stockton Ancients, 8 goals from 11 games. Ellie Dobson, 6 goals from 5 games for Newcastle. Casey Elson, 6 goals from 10 games for Newcastle. Felicity Jones, 6 goals from 8 games for York City. Right, now we're going to have a look at Division 1 South East. Apologies, I'm a little bit out of it this week with not many games. It's thrown me a little bit. Right, Division 1 South East, Hashtag United are 6 points clear at the top, but Norwich City and AFC Wimbledon have a game in hand on them each, but Hashtag United's goal difference kind of makes it a 7-point gap. Hashtag United 39 goal difference, Norwich City 13, AFC Wimbledon 12. So even if they were to get the level on points of Hashtag United, the goal difference almost acts like an extra point for Hashtag. So they're kind of comfortable at the top. Then it's very close. 2 teams on 16, 2 teams on 13, 2 teams on 11. Ashford Town, of course, the lone remaining surviving side that came up because Wyndham Town withdrew from the Division 1 South East earlier on in the season. They are 7 points clear of the relegation zone, which is Hounslow. And of course, we know how much Hounslow have struggled so far this season, although it seems as though they've picked up a bit now. They are able to play games. They've signed more players. The social media seems to be a bit more active. So remain confident that Hounslow can finish the season. We'll have to wait and see. Don't forget now only 20 games taking place in Division 1 South East. So some of these sides nowhere near the halfway point still. So there's going to be a lot of fixtures to cram into the second half of the season. But Ashford Town, 7 points clear of Hounslow. Now, of course, Cambridge City only on 3 points is giving Hounslow a bit of hope that if maybe they can pick up a win from somewhere or just even a couple of draws from somewhere, then it puts them back in the fight to maybe stay up. but with a minus 74 goal difference from 7 games. I think it's looking unlikely for Hounslow, if I'm completely honest. Let's have a look at the goal scoring stats. Ashley Hinks for Wimbledon, 11 goals from 7 appearances. Sarah Wiltshire, 11 from 8. Ashley Cheatley, 8 from 7. Kelly Wellfall for #United, 7 goals from 6 games. And Jasmine Williamson, 7 goals from 8 games for Actonians. They're the top goal scorers in South East. Let's have a look finally at Division 1 South West. Can anybody stop Cardiff? 9 games played, 27 points. Top of the table with a perfect 100% record. I did have a look. The record goal difference, if anyone is interested, was 100 for Keynsham Town back in 2016, I believe it was. So Cardiff City, 43 goal difference from 9 games. That's a perfect start to the season. AFC Bournemouth 5 points behind them, but they've played 2 games more. Exeter City 5 points behind them, but they have played the same amount. So it looks as though it could be Exeter that put the charge on Cardiff if they win those 2 games in hand. It really is between those. Southampton women's are 12 points behind. They've only got 1 game in hand. Moneyfields, though, could get themselves into the fight for a top 3 finish. And I know when we spoke to the Moneyfields manager Carl a few weeks ago, he said that is their aim, and then to get up next season when their new kind of facilities are all finished. The teams that came up from Division 1 Southwest, Moneyfields being one of them, they're going very well. AFC St Austell struggling towards the bottom, but picked up a first win that I think is going to give them a bit of confidence going into the second half of the season. Goals in Division 1 Southwest, Lucy Cooper and Shannon Albury, both of AFC Bournemouth, take the top 2 spots, 11 goals and 10 goals. Corey Williams and Chloe Lloyd, both of Cardiff City, in 3rd and 4th, 9 goals and 8 goals. And Sarah Stacey, also of Exeter City, 8 goals from 9 appearances, is the top 5. But Cardiff have 4 players in the top 10 in the goal scoring in Division 1 Southwest. I'm wondering if anybody can stop Cardiff this season. Now, of course, as much as I would like Cardiff to go unbeaten all season, they will lose at some point unless they win the FA Cup. This is in all competitions I'm talking. Can they go all the way through the Division 1 Southwest season with a 100% record? And you look at it and you think, well, maybe they can. They've beaten Bournemouth, they've beaten Exeter, they've beaten Southampton. The team they haven't played yet up towards the top is Moneyfields. They've beaten Chelsea. And Swindon is the other team who are in mid-table. And now if they've beaten Bournemouth, Exeter and Southampton, Moneyfields and Swindon, they could quite easily beat those as well. Can Cardiff go all through the season? Well, okay, let's put it another way. Can they go through the whole season 100%? Is what I was getting at. Can they win every single game this season? Unbeaten, I think they can certainly do. They might get a draw somewhere, but unbeaten they can certainly do. Can they win every single game? That would be quite something. It really would. But that is going to do it. We've had a look at some of the stats. That's going to do it for this week's Women's Football Chat and the Women's Football Chat for 2022. There isn't going to be a show next week because it's, between Christmas and New Year. And there are no results to talk about and no fixtures to look at either. So wouldn't be much of a show. So there isn't going to be one next week. I'll be back on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th of January, looking ahead to those FA Cup games, the Cup games and the League games on the 8th of January. That'll be another shorter one because, of course, there's no results to look at. So have a very good Christmas if you're celebrating Christmas. I'm sure all the women's football teams are very grateful for your support throughout 2022, and I'm grateful for your support on this show for the last 66 episodes now. Keep going through the second half of this year. pretty sure I'm going to be doing a summer knockout tournament again, because that was great fun to record and do. And then we'll keep it going into the next season as well. But as 2022 on this show draws to a close, thank you very much for watching and or listening once again. Keep supporting your local women's football team, and goodbye.